Welcome to Category 5 Technology TV. Amie DD is joining us this week to talk about her Tesla Model 3 hack. She's got the implant to be able to open the doors and start the engine and everything else. We've been hearing about it in the news, but we're going to learn what goes on and how she came up with that hack and learn a little bit more about Amie herself and all the things that she's up to that maybe aren't getting the same media attention as the Tesla hack, because she's just touched on so many different things with that one. We've got a great show planned for you, folks. Stick around. Our live recordings are trusted only to solid-state drives by Kingston Technology. Revive your computer with improved performance and reliability over traditional hard drives with Kingston SSDs.
Category 5 TV streams live with Telestream Wirecast and Nimble Streamer. Tune in every week on Roku, Kodi, and other HLS video players. For local showtimes, visit category5.tv.
Category5.tv is a member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. cat5.tv/TPN and the International Association of Internet Broadcasters. cat5.tv/IAIB.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's episode number 627 of Category 5 Technology TV. So great to have you here. Before we jump into it, I want to remind you, make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube and click on that little bell. That's going to make sure that you get the notifications whenever we are live or when we post brand new shiny videos. So make sure you subscribe. Now, you know her as the girl who hacked the Tesla keycard, so all she has to do is wave her hand and it'll open the door or start the engine. And she's a world-famous cosplayer and maker, and she uses the blood of her enemies to 3D print gems.
Oh, that's cool.
More on that later. But she also she funds STEM education for young girls. And she teaches robotics for kids and adults alike. Her name is Amie Danielle Dansby, better known as Amie DD for short. Amie, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I was going to say howdy, y'all. Since I am from Texas.
Yes, it makes sense now. Now, the whole world knows you, Amie, as a maker and a cosplayer, but what really makes you tick, and who is Amie DD?
Yeah, the fun thing, so I guess my actual name is Amie Danielle Dansby, so my initials are ADD. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for that. And that's kind of like, I always just used my actual name. My actual daywalker job is a software developer. I started pretty much in games. Used to work at Marvel Studios. I actually worked on the first Captain America game. I worked on the first Thor game. I actually worked on some of the calculations for that.
I'm sorry, you froze up right there. You worked on the calculations for...
Oh, perfect. It was like Marvel. They're coming in and they're like, oh, don't talk about it.
This is embargoed.
So I worked on some of the calculations for Thor's cape for
cool.
some of the polygons and for the rendering.
Yeah.
Because at the time, things like ragdoll physics was very computationally expensive. So super proud of that. So my actual college degree, I would say, is game simulation programming. So actually, that's what I still do.
Very cool. Now, Amie, like in August, your Tesla hack, we've all heard about it. It just blew up in the media, and it's instant fame for you. How has that been, as far as like dealing with that sudden onslaught of media and people visiting your website and giving their 2 cents about what they think about all the cool things that you're doing?
Yeah, so I've actually worked on this like Tesla hack for like a year.
Yeah.
And I was at DEF CON when it actually went viral, and DEF CON is just a hacking conference in Vegas. And I was eating, and my brother sent me a text. He's like, "You're on the front page of TechCrunch." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What the heck?" Like I said, it wasn't like a weekend whim project. I've been working on this for a year. I've been documenting all my stuff on Hackaday and like a tech diary. And I think because I showed blood, I actually like showed like the gory process, and the media just picked it up and went viral. I think as far as like the internet fame, I've always kind of had that so people find you naturally, whether it's through like the STEM education, the cosplay, the making community, programming or tech conferences. And those people are always like, they find you on the internet, you follow each other. It's like a mutual respect, but this is a completely different thing. I have people, you know, giving opinions. They don't know me. They don't know anything about me, judging based on my appearance. That's definitely a hard thing to handle. Like, I think the video in China had like 20 million views. I'm like, thank goodness I can't read those comments.
Oh dear. So some of the comments have obviously been nasty.
Oh yeah. A lot of religious backlash, which is interesting. So,
and can I ask now, and we're going to talk more about the Tesla hack in a little bit. Our viewers have already heard about it, but were you expecting a religious backlash when you got into this project?
Yeah, so I have another chip implant, so I've definitely experienced that before. So it was not something new to me. I just, some of the arguments are, I wouldn't, not invalid, but it just doesn't, like, what is the reason for the hate and the backlash for that? I pretty much just, my friends, like, just don't read the comments.
Sure.
But in the beginning, I was trying to reply to everyone that was asking a legitimate tech question about, like, you know, what is RFID, or what happens when you have to cut off your arm and change the battery? And I'm like, well, that's not how, you know, this type of technology works. So I was legitimately trying to reply to everyone. Yeah. But
and then it blew up.
Targeted at my personal appearance are probably like the ones that, I don't know. And also the guy that installed it for me. Yeah.
Has he been dealing with backlash too?
It would be, people were saying, you know, like, they're like, oh, she has green hair and tattoos. She obviously doesn't make, like, she doesn't plan for the future. But I'm like, but I over-plan. I, like, over-engineer everything. Like,
sure. So how do you deal with that stress? I mean, personally, we know that wasn't your motivation to raise hell, right? Like, you're an innovator, you create, and you take things to the next level. That's what you're all about. How do you deal with this sudden backlash, with sudden, like, extreme fame? So sure, you know, well known up until a point, and then August drops and everybody in the world is talking about Amie DD. So
has an opinion.
Yeah, and that opinion. So there's so much opinion, like, even if 50% of it is hate opinion, how do you personally internalize that and deal with that?
Yeah, so I think it's like it's still a hard thing, because I'm like, all right, I'm still like a human being. And
let's remember that, folks.
I mean, I may have some upgraded parts, but like it's still, and it's weird because you have 50 good things people say, and then that one bad one, it's like, why does that, like, mentally, like, affect you because you feel you need to prove yourself? Yeah. So I tried to I'm like, all right, I'm going to focus on only the ones that are positive, or ones that are not making, like, pointing at, like, my appearance or anything, but try to give my opinion, because that's one thing people don't understand is, like, they think the chip thing is super weird, but RFID technology is not a new thing. It's been around a really long time. But same for, like, you wear glasses. So to me, glasses are some type of body modification. You weren't born with it, but they improve your life, right? So sweet. But somebody's like, all right, that's not permanent. So I'm like, well, what if you get LASIK? So what, now you're going to burn your eyeballs with a laser? And that, like, makes it more, but that's, like, acceptable by now standards.
So, and you're trying to grab at analogies that can try to make people understand. I mean, what it boils down to, like, you don't have to go there, Amie. Like, you're doing something awesome, and you're doing some incredible things, and that's up to you what you do with your own body. So, but you got to know that.
But sharing, that's, like, the thing I think I'm trying. I was like, because my friend's like, well, okay, why did you do this? Like, what was the point of accomplishing that?
Right.
Because obviously you have no idea when something goes viral, like, you know, people are going to ask you philosophical, like, life questions. Tough. But at the same time, I want people to share. I don't want people to be, like, discouraged when you, like, work on projects, because, like, no one knows what they're doing in the beginning. Like, you like to think you do, but you don't. Yeah. So if you stop sharing what you're doing, then, like, you know, we'll never be on Mars, or whatever the future holds.
Sure.
Waiting for be able to beam me up. that'll be my future.
So let's look at what you actually do. So stepping back from like the negative side of the fame that you've received, and stepping back from having to justify your decisions as a maker, and let's look at some of the things that you know, like I want to know. One of my questions right at the top was what makes Amie tick, and I'm wondering, like, when did you realize as a person that you were going to use your creativity to inspire other young people and just makers in general?
Yeah, and so I think that's something I've kind of come to realize probably over my somewhat adult life. I feel like I personally do not feel I'm a creative person. And I know people say that, but I'm like, yes, but the only reason I'm creative is because of technology, right? So to me, I think of like artistic and creative are people that can draw a straight line without the use of a computer. And that is not me. So anything that I make, whether it's from coding or programming to 3D printing, any of that stuff is heavily driven on some type of technology or computer or math.
Sure, but what's to say that the creative that you're defining, their paintbrush isn't the tool that they're using, right? So
yeah, it's just a different. But see, I think of it as like I'm an obsessive person, right?
Okay.
So I have those obsessive like tendencies, but like not as like knocking myself as like I'm not a creative is a bad thing. Like if you were to like give me a ball of clay and be like, all right, I need you to mold something, like for some reason that doesn't translate to me. But if you put it in front of a computer, I can put in parameters, and to me that translates as, all right, I can put in these two parameters and, you know, it turns into a box or does whatever you want to set as some type of variable.
Yeah. So then I guess the question evolves into, like, when did you realize that technology could be used as an outlet for whether maybe
using some 3D printing or at work, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I used to work in R&D, so we did a lot of manufacturing for the Xbox and the consoles, and we had like industrial $250,000, you know, US dollar printers.
Oh wow! So you're stepping it up like boom.
In Canadian, that's a little.
Yeah, that's like $1 billion.
And you know, we just use them for prototyping and parts and stuff like that. And I don't think it ever clicked in my mind until like we were playing around and we like printed this like little sword in there. Yeah. And the printers are a laser base, so they come out of a powder. So literally when you're pulling it out of like this sword out of there, when it's done and the powder just releases, it's like, like this sort of like, it was such a eye-opening moment. And I don't know why I never thought of like 3D printing or additive manufacturing in that way.
Yeah.
I think that was like my ultimate gateway like drug for that. It's like, holy crap, like this could be used for so much more. Yeah. I mean, they use it for so much more, but like this, I'm like, this is how you actually make like a little round like sphere and object. And yeah. What
a world when the technology can do that. So thinking of the technology piece and realizing that that's kind of your first foray into being a maker, what technologies have you seen since that time, Amie, that have really driven your passion or gotten you excited about the future of maker, whether it be electronics or maker creations or even cosplay?
Yeah, I think I mean, besides just saying the internet in general, the accessibility to, you know, like microcontrollers, the accessibility to like open source hardware, you know, because it used to be that there were patents on a lot of these like 3D printers and a lot of these technologies. So as these patents have expired, like 3D printers are affordable. You can buy a 3D printer, like an entry level basic one, for like $200 or $300 on like Amazon these days. And that accessibility, and then if you don't know anything about 3D printing, there's even a community for models, like, you know, little things that you can actually print. So these are things people can have in their home.
Sure. Yeah, I think about like the open nature of like Thingiverse, for example, and the way that
that's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so you're able to create something and share it with a community of other makers. It's awesome.
And I think about it this way. So there's a project for this school in Africa, and they don't have access to computers or all of like really any type of internet, anything that has to have an internet-based connection.
Yeah.
But they had a 3D printer. So they were able to download models from Thingiverse or somewhere like that. So worked with like this group of girls, and they designed these little purses that they could 3D print. So then they were able to like send the file to this school in Africa for these girls, and they were able to put it on, you know, the SD card and print it on their printer. So they don't have access to like a lot of, you know, the materials and stuff to make these purses, but the accessibility of like being able to create something from nothing and share that, that's pretty cool.
Too cool. Now, you've kind of evolved your creations to include cosplay, and when you've done that, I've seen some of your work, and it's incredible. You've taken, whether it be 3D printing or maker electronics and different circuit boards and things, and you've adapted those into your cosplay creations. So, like, how did you evolve into that? And
how did that evolve?
Yeah, like getting into electronics as well, and then open sourcing some of the stuff, and it's just mind-blowing.
I think like the community of like the internet too also, but so I will say probably like most people in the world, we all have our day walker job, right? And you probably work at for some big corporation, and you're not sharing your code, you're not talking about your work, you work in a restaurant, they're probably not sharing your recipes. You know, you kind of live in this like little bubble during the day.
Yeah.
So when I would come home at night, when I started to like work on some of these like, you know, little projects for 3D printing or electronics, I could share that because that wasn't part of my day walker job. And then next thing you know, you just post something on a open source like Hackster or Hackaday, some forum somewhere, and you get general feedback, or somebody makes your design or your model. And I think the fandom, I feel I'm very influenced by what I read or watch at the moment. So fandoms are some weird way that connects people. And so like the Star Trek Discovery, like my friend and I, we both are huge Star Trek Discovery fans, even though it's kind of like a fairly new show. But I don't know. I know we talked about this briefly, like you and I in our emails back and forth, but like when we made these ears, the inside of the ears are this disco material. And then I even... that. Yeah, so, but my friend's like, all right, they can't just be like Star Trek disco ears. So then I just made this design, and I laser cut all of them individually. So they're the Star Trek Delta insignia symbols. So, I mean, I completely over-engineered the out of that thing. I mean, for both things. But, and then I even designed the circuit boards themselves, because I needed kind of a small footprint to be able to fit on the inside. And just used some pre-programmed LEDs. But I provided all of that. Actually, I have them around here somewhere.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Cool.
But yeah, they're like...
And just goes to show how like your electronics have been designed specifically to fit into the cosplay.
Yep. Yeah. So, and really, you know, there's access to Raspberry Pi and a lot of these other microcontrollers, but the Raspberry Pi is way overkill for just lighting up some LEDs.
Yeah.
And I can fabricate, you know, that my actual cost of that is like 20 cents, and that includes the components.
Unreal.
So I like to design some of these like circuit boards. I've even been doing some of the stuff with the flexible PCBs, because then you can, you know, you're not quite as limited. You can't do a complete like bend, because you can't have like the copper touch on each side. But
okay,
yeah.
That's cool.
It's endless. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably like a complete rambling of how I got to here, but
it's inspiring though, and even for me as a wannabe maker, like I've on the show done some soldering, I've done some work to try to like fix components or even create my own circuitry. So seeing how far you've been able to take it, Amie, has been inspiring for someone like myself as well, who's just kind of getting started.
Hardware is frustrating compared to software, I will say, because it's just like it doesn't turn on. Why does it? I can't step through and debug it. It's not. But I will say one really good thing about the cosplay aspect of that is that makes me finish a project. So I always say I have like
Deadlines.
a box, and like why, you always get frustrated. You get to a point where you stop. So I found a really good support around. I have a few other friends that are actually female programmers as well, and we do the cosplay thing. So we're very encouraging. So when we go to like a Comic-Con or something like that, like we have to be finished by this date, and whether you think your work sucks or not. And it's really interesting because I find that you don't ever have the conversations with people about what went right. The conversations and the problem solving about what went wrong is like, that's what, somebody's like, oh, it's perfect. What was the hardest part? And somebody's like, oh, nothing. And I'm like, you are a liar. You're a liar.
It was easy breezy. Yeah, I've been doing this for years. Listen, Amie, you spoke about a fair bit about the 3D printing that you've done. I just want to really quickly touch on it. What on earth is the blood of your enemies?
So if you know anything about 3D printing, so there's FDM printers, which it actually kind of looks like, I have it around here somewhere.
Like the filament? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, but some people don't know.
Oh, okay.
I randomly just, have some because that's my life. So it'll actually take it up and it heats it up through a nozzle.
Yeah. I just love that you have just random filament just hanging around your desk. Like just reach over here. Oh yeah, here's some filament.
Story of my life everywhere. But there's a filament company that's local. They're based out of, they're in Washington, I guess. I don't know if they want me to say. They're in Portland, but it's called Protopasta. And I actually went up there and worked on making my own filament color. And something I use in cosplay a lot is like gems. So I've always tried to find like a ruby red, like translucent color. So literally through this entire fabrication process of formulating the colors, machining all of the filament, it literally looks like pasta. So like that's kind of like, they call it's like the endless possibilities. Yeah. And we got to name our colors. I felt like it was like naming a fingernail polish color or something. But they're like, what do you want to call it? And I'm like, I don't know. So I was like, the blood of my enemies. And it's just funny that it's just evolved into this.
It's the right color. Worked out.
Yeah, no, it was perfect. It kind of looks on the spool. I have it around here somewhere. But they're that company alone. So like when they did the color, they're like, all right, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to give back as far as like the community for 3D printing? So they did it. They're actually donate 10% to this scholarship program I created for girls in STEM. And not just my color, but there were 2 other girls that we all formulated colors when we were up at their workshop. And they're donating percentage to all of it just to push back for like the STEM education.
That's awesome.
It's the community between like, I know I've talked about community a million times, but it's very true. Like if you have a very supporting community, like that's the difference between sharing your work and not sharing your work. So
I'd like to post a link below for that filament company so that, Amie, we can perhaps support that scholarship program as well indirectly.
Print all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick before we take a break, Amie, are there any projects that come to mind that are just absolutely obscure that nobody's ever seen or heard of that you've done that you loved doing? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that I love doing. I think the Star Trek ear one was definitely like a niche thing. That's not something like if you just walked by, you would not know. You would have to literally like look at the detail of the ears. And I know that seems like minuscule, but it's just the details I like to put into stuff like that not just the fandom of someone they would see. They'd just be like, all right, you're doing this thing from Star Trek Disco. Oh, that's funny. Your ears light up. Wait, are those like actually the the Star Trek Delta symbols? Wait, holy crap, are those like PCBs shaped like the Delta symbol? And I don't know, that's the one thing come to mind because that's just I just recently got back from Dragon Con, which is one of the things I did.
So even though we've seen that one, I mean the labor of love and the intense amount of detail that you put into that, that's really, really cool.
Fingers hurt. I don't think what else?
No doubt.
God, I have so many. Like, sometimes I don't feel that I'm like ever not like proud, but it's like if somebody ever looked at the inside and you just see it's like, oh, in my mind it's going to be all like organized, and then you open up, it's like a big spaghetti mess for like your electronics. Because it's funny, like I call it the con crunch. So it's literally you're like, everything works, and then the day you get there, like nothing works. Just shove it in there. And I wouldn't say like all dignity of like how pretty it was on the outside. You're just like, I just want it to work. But man, do I have anything? I'm trying to think what I've actually kept. So I did I don't even think I gave you a picture, but I did a battle Snow White armor. So I actually went with a few other friends, and we did these self-rescuing princess armor. And actually the breastplate, I actually 3D printed that on fabric.
Wow. And
so, because I will say, like, anything that is a curve is an engineering predicament. So trying to make things for like breastplate armor when stuff doesn't bend is always kind of like a challenge, I think. So 3D printing stuff on fabric actually like, actually I'm pretty proud of that one. I'm trying to like look around. I'm like, what else is in my
We'd love to see it. Now, are there pictures that we can find on your website, amiedd.com?
Yeah, they're on there under
Links are below, folks. Links are below to Amy's website. Amy, we've got to take a really quick break. We are speaking with Amie DD. She is a maker, and when we return, we're going to be talking with her about that Tesla hack. We all want to know a little bit more about what went into it, and she's got some words for young girls in STEM as well. Stick around. Welcome back, everybody. This is Category 5 Technology TV. Have you ever lost your keys, Henry?
I think I just did. Why?
Oh, no. Where are my car keys? Sasha, you been there, done that?
I have been there.
Have you been there, done that? Well, we're speaking with Amie DD, and she is the maker who has done the Tesla hack so that she will never lose her car keys again. Amy, thanks for joining us this week.
Yep.
Good to see you. Now, can you tell us a little bit about that Tesla hack? I mean, I know most of us are already familiar with what you have accomplished, but what was the process like? You mentioned it took about a year to do, but getting through like from first idea to actually having the implant done, what was that process like for you?
So I have a RFID chip implant in my other hand already. That is just it just holds 888 bytes of data. You can read and write to it. It has a unique identifier. And it came around the time that, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago, I had already budgeted that was my year to get a new car. So I looked at like the factors and the price. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to go ahead and pre-order this Tesla like day one. Like, it's only $1,000 deposit. I spent money on worse things or Lego sets or whatever. But that I had heard that they were going to use you could use your phone to access the car, or instead of giving someone a key, it's a valet key, and it's very similar to like a hotel room key. So there's no identifier in the car. Just when you go check in a hotel, they take the card, they scan it, then it like identifies it with your room. So
Right.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure that technology is the same as like the chip I currently have. I'm like, I wonder if I'll be able to write that chip to my current like implant in my hand and be able to start my car. So none of the cars were out yet, right? I had to wait 2 years to get it. So, and none of the other Teslas had the valet key.
Right.
So the Model S doesn't have that. So sorry, Model S owners. Only the Model 3. So it's kind of like a thing. I'm like, I can't actually test it until I get it. And then when I did get my car and got the valet key, I scanned them just to see what public information you could get from like an RFID scanner. Quite a bit, actually, but it runs on a Java applet, which means it runs on the server side. Oh. So that is why you can't rip off that information and write it to like a MFARE tag. An MFARE tag is just like basic access control.
Okay.
Like for your home, let you in and out. they're not too secure. So that's what really made this secure. And it runs ST Micro and from a semiconductor in Germany. They're not the only company, but they've been around quite a while. And super interesting random thing, if you ever played Lego Dimensions is this game, and the little characters, or it's a physical character, and you plug it into a gamepad like on your Xbox or something. So when you actually touch the Lego controller, it shows up on the game and screen. But that communication is RFID, and I thought I was going to be sneaky and be able to rip that data off there too. But they actually make the same like semiconductor as like the security for. Yeah, just super random. I'm like, Tesla is powered by Lego. I knew it.
So their RFID chip was significantly more secure than the traditional RFID. Is that what I gleaned from that?
Yes, because it runs a Java applet, which runs on the secure on the server side. So my car is the server. That is like the authentication saying. So think of it this way. You use your credit card and they have the chip, right?
Yeah.
You're putting the card in the machine and it's saying, yes, I am present and I authorize you for this transaction. It's like a two-way authentication. So
is it near field power? Like what powers the technology?
Yeah, so that's what's actually really interesting. So on the Tesla itself, to open the car, on the side of the car is actually an RFID reader.
Yeah.
So you can tap it once to the side of the car, it will unlock your car.
I love I love that you're already saying tap it once, like you're using the gesture, like you're used to. For the normal folks, it's like this. Yeah.
So what's another thing that's like super interesting is everyone asks like, so the antenna on it is massive, and massive. It's the size of a Lego minifigure.
Wow.
That's my banana to scale measurement. And it needs that whopping antenna because of the chip. Like it just, because that's something I think that's kind of miscommunicated about how RFID works. Like there's no battery in me. Like you don't have to charge me or the chip. The way that this radio frequency or this near field communication works is the power in the battery and everything is in the car and that reader. So when I get close to it and it's that radio frequency is what's like giving me the access.
Okay.
I think that kind of makes sense.
Would like a bulky sweater or anything get in the way? Like is there?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to live in the south.
That was like a few things that was like with my test that was like a challenge because there's two RFID readers in the car. One is on the outside of the car to get in, and then there's another one that it's right behind the cup holders on the center console. And the antenna and the arm, like that was very specific too. So
in your arm, you mean?
But just in general, of like this would be like a really bad example, but I'm going to use a piece of paper. Okay, so do I have that? Okay, so the Tesla Valet key card is like the size of a credit card.
Yeah.
And the chip is in the corner and it runs around this tiny little copper piece is the antenna, and it runs around the perimeter of the card. So when I first the way I got the chip out is I dissolved them in acetone.
So cool.
Like chemical grade acetone. I dropped my cell phone in there too.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was not fun. But I cut the first antenna and I'm like, what the heck? This chip's not working now. Because it worked before when I scanned it. Then I realized, I'm like, that little copper thing's important.
Yeah.
So the cards are relatively expensive. They're around $5 US. So I kept buying more. Felt real guilty. Kind of felt like it's like going to the hardware store and be like, I need some bleach, some duct tape, some bags. I just felt like I was going to get in trouble.
And some
like,
industrial grade acetone.
I know. I just felt really like guilty. I'm like, are they going to ask like, why am I buying these like more Tesla cards? I never did. So when I dissolved it and I grabbed the antenna, so like say the antenna is flat like this, I was like, I'll just bend it. So even bending it at like this, like a 90 degree, that's a terrible 90 degrees, but that bend actually like is enough to like mess up like the, I guess the frequency of the strength. So I had troubles with that. So like, that's why you couldn't really put the antenna like in your wrist, because if you bend it, then actually like interrupts and doesn't work with the antenna. So, and actually the range. So I saw a lot of people were like, oh, it only gets like a 10 millimeter range. And I'm like, yeah, but it only got like a 25 millimeter range when it was with the car.
Right.
So now my skin is in the way because you only have to tap it once. And as soon as you authenticate, like your card once, you don't have to like keep your arm on the console the entire time you're driving.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, that was, I'm like, people had lots of opinions about that. I'm like, as someone who actually owns a Tesla, that is not true. Like, that's not how it works. Trying to think what
Makes
else.
sense. Makes sense.
So actually, when I was trying to measure the frequency of the RFID on this inner side of the console, that was kind of because here's the thing, like they could always go in and adjust like the frequency of like that type of like RFID, right? So they could come and be like, all right, we're going to increase it or we're going to decrease it. So I tried to make my own like RFID antenna, like some extenders, like ones you can see, you can put like a sticker on it and then just like extend it outside of the window.
Oh, okay.
I tried things with like, I was measuring like some of the baud rates because their chip runs on a 13.56, I think, for the megahertz for the frequency. So I try to take like a bunch of. So think of it this way: you're like, everyone's like, "Oh, my cell phone works," but then you get into like a concert or a sports game, and then there's like 1,000 other people around you, and you'd be like, "Well, now why does my phone not work?" It's because there's so many devices on the same frequency in that same little area. So I took a bunch of other devices that I knew ran on the same frequency, and I would like put them around the center console. I kind of felt like I was doing a seance. So, because I was just trying to see what information or kind of like how this thing was working. I tried to get in through the car as well.
So you literally had to hack the Tesla and the key card in order to figure out how it worked. To know that this was going to work for you.
I really like, I have another RFID implant in this hand, right? But it's not, I've never had to like make an antenna like that. So that was super interesting. So the guy that I bought my original chip for my hand from, he has a webpage called Dangerous Things, which is very true. But he has another company he's been trying to start. It's called VivoKey, and it's like an all-in-one chip where you can run your data, so your security, your public transport, your banking, kind of the real mark of the beast chip. But
I said we weren't going to go there.
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, at least put it all on one card. I mean, I have how many bank cards and how many credit cards that like are not at all connected.
That would be awesome.
So that's the VivoKey chip, and so he's the one that actually encased my chip in the biopolymer for me.
Okay.
Because you don't want to put straight copper in your body, right? That's probably not a good idea. So I will be long gone in dust before the biopolymer ever gives out.
Yeah.
I would be more likely to damage it, probably just from, whacking it too hard or hitting it.
Sasha, you have a question?
I have a question from the chat room, and then I have a question from my own brain.
Yeah.
But so here's a question from Soulboo. Has Tesla been in contact in any way, and what are their views?
So I love the beach this time of year.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, I have.
And that's all she can say.
I have a question myself. Okay, so you know how you hear that sometimes, like, you press unlock on your car and you can unlock other cars, right? Is it like?
Oh, if it's the same frequency, or
have you tried unlocking other cars?
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be like, what is that person? Oh, it's so funny because Teslas have built-in sensory for the cameras so they can record. So
right,
like, what is this person doing?
Randomly touching my car with her arm.
No, I haven't tried that. But I think some of the reasons, like, I've heard that from like Honda, because they only have so many of the same keys.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, I haven't tried that.
It would be interesting.
She's an ethical hacker,
like,
Sasha.
Okay, so say there's a lot lot of Teslas in a parking lot and you forget where you park. I mean, you could hold, like, you could find your car by,
Boy.
Yeah,
Nice.
no, that's kind of the interesting thing, and that's kind of what like sparked my interest, because when I got the Tesla Valet cards that come with your car, I'm like looking and I'm like, it's just a black card that says Tesla and then a little picture on the back for like IKEA instructions. This is how you use it. But because I was thinking, I'm like, what happens if you're going somewhere and you valet park your car and there's 50 other Teslas and everyone gives them the same key? How do they know which one goes to which? So that's like,
Right. It's not like the car that we can push the button and hear the horn beep. Not quite the same,
beep,
right?
beep, beep. Then you have like 50 of the same like black card in there, and you're like, which one goes to which?
Do you have a spare key?
Spare?
Yes. So that's another thing too. Yeah, you can have up to 6 keys paired with it. So
wow.
It's funny, and you can have your mobile device still. So I still use my phone because you can turn on your air or your heat before you get to your car. What's really funny is somebody pointed this out in like one of the YouTube videos. So my phone, you can have a phone name. I have an iPhone, and my phone's name is Virus. So, because I always think it's funny when people have AirDrop on and it's like public, so you just send them something. They're like, "Oh my God, a virus is sending me." But my phone was like paired in one of the videos when I was originally like doing some like document stuff, and somebody's like, "Hey, your car has a virus." And I'm like, what are they talking about? And then sure enough, you could see like in the background that one of the other keys that was paired was the name of my phone, which was Virus. I'm like, oh, that's funny.
There was a question. You were talking about the polymer that you had to have this enrobed in before it was inserted. At __giant_ wanted to know if you've had any problems or concerns over rejection, or if you have to manage that with medication, or like how does that work for you?
Yeah, somebody did ask me if I had to take anti-rejection meds. It's not an organ transplant, right? So it's like
but it's a foreign body. I mean, it's something in your arm that could be rejected, right? So you must take precautions?
Yeah, but it's not underneath the muscle, or it's not in an organ. It's literally under, like in the dermis layer under the skin. So it would be like getting a dermal piercing. That's the only way I can think of
That makes total sense,
like, I don't, like I have my ears pierced, but like, like the people that even have like this part pierced, or, I guess it's a little bit deeper than that, but it's, no, I haven't had. I will say one thing was, it's right where I like put my arms for like where my keyboard is.
Yep.
So that's like kind of a.
You feel that bump there?
So that's like something that's like, can you feel it? And I'm like, it's kind of like a mental part. Like I know it's there, but like, no, I don't wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I feel you. Like it's not. it's not disturbing my everyday routine.
Okay. Was it scary to have this done, or to as you're approaching the actual surgery to have this inserted? Were you scared?
Yeah, because like I tried every way pretty much. I was trying to get in through the car, through the computer way, and kind of when I realized that the way it was running as far as like on the Java applet on the secure server side. I roped in my friend Amel at Dangerous Things. I'm like, all right, we're just gonna encase it in biopolymer, and I'm just gonna do it. And I wanted to go with a doctor because I was thinking, I'm like, if other people want to do this, and they're in the Dallas area where I live, I want other people to be able to go to a doctor. Yeah. And then the discussion came. My friend that does video, I'm like, all right, well, I want to document this. And then the doctor's like, all right, well, I don't want to be recorded, right? Because that's like, and it was just fine. That's his medical license. I totally respect that.
Yeah.
And then it happened again. And then it happened again. So finally, just talked to Mel, and he's like, just have a body modification person do this, because body modification people are doing way more intensive things. They're completely like familiar with the process, the sanitary stuff. And it was, I was super scared going in. I laughed because I'm like, he had like little candy things, and I'm like, did I get that candy? And he's like, no, that's only if your blood sugar is low. Yeah, no, I think I was, yeah, no, I was definitely scared. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's like, why are you afraid of something that you're doing to yourself, right? So it's because it's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, I don't like physical pain. I know that seems like I have a bunch of tattoos, but yeah, I was really worried about, I'm like, oh my gosh, how bad is this going to hurt? But it's the strange things that you do when you really want something.
Oh.
Well, you've achieved it, and it works, right? Like, how is it as far as functionality goes for you at this point? Because you've healed up.
The first 2 days it didn't work, and so this is another thing. Like, as soon as it went viral, it was super weird because I was at. I actually had pre-ordered. Let me start at the beginning really quick.
We should say the video went viral.
Yeah.
Oh, the video. Yeah, that's context is important.
It is,
this situation. So I actually got my Tesla in 2018, the day after I got back from DEF CON. So I had started working on that project then. So when I went to DEF CON this year in 2019, I was like, all right, I want to finish this project. And, this is like a year-long thing. It's also bittersweet because I started it at DEF CON and I'm kind of like completing it. So when I posted that video, had no idea like what was going on. And then people were like, oh, she didn't show it working. And I'm like, I'm at like DEF CON. It's been 2 days, people.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, if you ever had surgery, stitches, if you've been to the dentist, anything like that, your body and your skin is inflamed. There's fluid around stuff. It's swollen. So the read range, it was, I'm sure I can find a picture and send it to you. But it was a nice big lump on there. So it didn't work like the first day. And I was like, okay, I'm scared. And then the second day it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, now I'm scared. And then the third day, I have a few other like Proximate readers and RFIDs that I use for my computer and I was testing.
Yeah.
And it read on that. And I'm like, okay, so I know that the chip is not damaged.
Yeah.
It's still just swollen because the read range on the Tesla is a little bit different. I also had to play around with like the angle of the antenna for my arm.
Oh, okay.
So like some people were like, why did you do this on the outside of the car?
Right. Because I'm
that
hip.
was specifically because of the antenna angle.
Oh, okay. So you found ways that work the best as far as positioning goes. You found ways that work the best for you.
Yeah, that's like something that you have to like just figure out. Because that's the thing when you're doing something new, like,
same with my phone.
Awesome, it's not on Google, but also like, hey, I need help and there's no answers on Google.
Yeah. First,
That's to get into the car. I have a question, actually.
All right.
Like, it's talking about the antenna and everything, so it can send and receive signals. Do you have any trouble at the airport? Because you're always going to cons, everything else. Like, do you have any trouble with that kind of thing?
Yeah, that'd be a concern,
going
right?
to stores or anything?
No, so like the metal like in a tooth filling or your glasses, that has more metal than the amount of metal that are in the chips that I have. Though I will say when I got my first chip implant, I was super nervous because I had read there weren't any problems going through airport security, but still I was like, all right, I'm going to print out like the data sheet for this, like the parts and stuff. If I have any problems, I go through and then I can like explain. But the problem about going through airport security when you're trying to explain things, usually in electronics, you get a bill of materials list, and the bill of materials list abbreviation is a BOM. So going to airport security and having like a list that says BOM list is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
So.
Oh boy.
Just
the things we don't necessarily think of. Now, Amie had actually recorded videos and the actual process of the creation of the Tesla hack. So you can go to amiedd.com to actually follow along with that series, and I'd encourage you to do so, especially if you're just interested in learning the process that she's gone through. Visit her website to be able to follow along with that. Amie, moving along.
There will be blood, though.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Just like go like this. Now, how are you using your superpowers at this point to help young girls in STEM? We talked a little bit about that at the top of the show.
Yeah. So that's been something like STEM education is, for people that don't know, is the science, technology, engineering, mathematics. and now kind of, the arts as well. So I guess this is the third year. So 3 years ago, I started this scholarship program for girls in STEM through the National Video Game Museum here in Dallas. And I completely funded that myself. It's not very much money, but I put enough in there for 5 years in the hopes that it would kind of grow. This museum is founded by 3 people and their families. So that was something, it's like this weird, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe that. When I was going to college, I was pretty much the only girl in all of my programming classes. I had one other girl in one of my mathematics classes, but I think she was doing more of like a simulation probability. So I used to specifically go out of my way, make sure I'd be like, all right, I'm not going to wear makeup because I want to be taken seriously. You kind of feel you live this almost like this double life and not even on purpose. And I think when I got a little bit older, I realized I'm like, man, this is exhausting. You need to either be this all-in-one, like just go for it, or just keep, don't do it at all. And it's really interesting because I was like, all right, if I'm going to help start this scholarship program with the museum, I was like, first off, I don't want people to think I'm like rich or have lots of money, because that was like not the case. And I was like, I even don't feel it's very much money, right? But price of education and stuff like that is so expensive these days. Any bit helps. But my idea is like, I had scholarships when I was going to school. And I remember someone saying, pay it back, pay it forward. And every bit helps. And so I would like the scholarship to grow, like more than the 5 years that I put into it. And the filament they've donated for my filament color, like that little bit, like, and then I actually met the girl last year that won the scholarship at the award. And it was really, really interesting because to me, I'm like, all right, it's not very much money, but she was like, I have so many little scholarships. And she's like, I would not be able to go to school without this. And she was a little shy at first, but then we just started talking about, she was working on some like algorithm stuff for some stuff in C++, and she was just talking about what she was doing, and the general excitement was like me to a T. Like, but you don't have that I guess that peer communication or that encouragement. I mean, also I'm like, all right, now there's the internet and you can share your stuff. But
Sure.
Yeah, I guess if I can make a little bit of a difference, I still feel cheesy sometimes. So, because I remember like when my dad is an accountant, and I remember when I was like, all right, I want to major in programming and computer science.
Okay.
So I like made an Excel spreadsheet of like what I could do with a computer science degree. And because that was his language, he understood like the accounting and the numbers. And he's like, I spoke his language. He's like, okay. He's like, you can like, I know I don't even feel that I'm not that old, but I'm like, computer science was still kind of a new thing when I was like going to school.
Right.
And he completely supported me, but it's, it's still very much a male dominated industry.
Yeah, true enough.
Still to this day. But yeah, how do you keep like the deterrent away from someone who's like, hey, I don't know if I'm comfortable, like, it's like, hey, I like computers, I like programming, I like code, I like fashion, I like the data science, but sometimes the cultural of being around either people that you feel know way more than you, or I hate to say it, just like majority of guys, because that's pretty much all I've worked with. Though I will say I've had good feedback. I've never had, like when I was at Marvel, I still talk to my 3 bosses, who are all like a super positive influence in my life. And I hate hearing stories when people say that I'm a rare exception, but
so we can change that. We can change that, and through your scholarship program, I think you're helping to do that.
If it'll grow, like that's the thing. And like to me, it's so weird because I'm like, all right. At first, I didn't want my name attached to it because I'm like, oh, that's not why I'm doing that, right?
Sure.
I just want to give back in some way that I can, and help this museum because they've done a lot, and they want to do the scholarship program, and they, they'll actually match like whatever I donate. Yeah, it's weird to think that like you could change someone's life because, yeah, so super random, other really quick.
Yes.
I'm like squirrel mode. But when I went to Australia to teach a few workshops for a museum there last summer, and I was going to Adelaide, so it's a 22-hour flight from Dallas. My flight got canceled. I was at the airport for 3 days, and it was a very, very long, exhausting thing. And then they got me on a flight from like Dallas to Melbourne, and then I had like a hopper plane, something like that. I was so exhausted. And then on my hour flight to Adelaide, it was like in the morning time. I sat next to this stranger, and somehow this conversation came up. He's actually a PhD, I believe, electrical engineer. And he has a daughter that's, I want to say she's 7 or 8. And discussion came up of how you can get young girls into, just STEM education in general. Like that's always a conversation. And it was super weird. I was talking about this electronic board I have from Adafruit. It's a circuit playground. You don't have to do any soldering. It's a really easy, use a Circuit Python to code, and some of the block code. And it's a very rewarding thing because you can make some stuff light up. You can make it move with like a motion control.
Cool.
And I happened to have one in my bag, I have no idea why it was still in my bag. And I'm like, I have one. So I just gave it to him. And then he's like, oh, and then they saw when he was at the airport that they were picking me up, and he's like, oh, you're here for an event. And I'm like, yeah. So actually when he went home with his daughter, he showed her, she was so excited. They made a little fairy wand, then came to the event, and she showed me like what she made and coded.
Cool.
That was like, I'm like, this is why I was meant to miss my flight for 3 days.
Unreal how things work together, eh?
Yeah. So like but at the same time, like when I teach some of like the workshops and stuff for kids and adults, they'll say, hey, why do I need to learn programming? Or some of the, like I taught for an hour of code for this girls workshop. They're like, oh, we like fashion and this. I'm like, so that like, I believe it's Pinterest that was formed on data science, pretty much. Like this, there's 2 girls that are programmers that liked fashion and that. I'm like, you can like both. You can like all the things. So when I teach these workshops, sometimes I'll teach like a basic thing, like this is, you're soldering something. They're like, oh, why do I have to do this? And then I'll apply it to, I'll like 3D print all these little swords. They'll solder a piece and they'll put it in and then be like, oh, they have that same moment I have when they realize you're like, oh, like something just clicks in your mind and you're like, oh, it's like how it's made. It's like this full connection.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying you have to like join my church of Elon Musk, as the internet has called me, but it's that general interest of finding something. Because I don't know, like when people say, what do you like, how do you find something you're interested in? Like that's not my problem. Like my problem is I need to give up something, but for a lot of people, they don't know what they like. So I think the idea is maybe to say yes to doing more things, like, or going to more workshops or. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Tesla hack is just like one facet of what you have done. And there's so much more to Amie DD than meets the eye, and that the media is generally like reporting, because this thing blew up. Like this is what people are hearing about.
And like I know you and I talked about it. I said I've had a little, so that I've learned hard lessons from the media as far as like.
It's only been a month, folks.
Yeah, but like I sent my friend a thing. I'm like, why does this company want me to upload my video to their platform? Like, I didn't understand that. And he's like, because they want to monetize on your thing. I'm like, I'm not even monetizing on my thing.
Yeah, no, so, subscribe to Amie DD.
Yeah, like I'm like, first off, that's not why I did it. It's kind of funny. It's like this game of, do you play the game Telephone where you tell one person one thing? It's like to the end when I read some article, my name's not even spelled right and some like facts are misled. But like a lot of the media stuff, I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure they probably picked up on, I have green hair, I'm a female, and Tesla. Those are like 3 hot topics right now.
Sure.
So I fall in this little Venn diagram of niche markets. So but some of them didn't even link like my tech stuff that I've been working on.
Sure.
And that's what like I think is probably like thrown me off kind of about some of the media stuff in general. And I'm like, this is not like hey, this is going to be real fun to do this weekend. Like there was a lot of time and research went into this.
Yeah.
And it's...
Well, I think our viewers are not going to judge you based on first impressions by the hair and the tattoos and, sure, okay? So don't judge media by what you've had to deal with.
What I'm saying as my general...
Yeah.
So I will say, like, The Verge, I had great experience with Andrew from The Verge. So he saw that it went... like live there. I guess he sent me an email, and then he actually sent me a message on Twitter. He's like, hey, I saw you posted this. I wanted to ask you something, but I see you're at DEF CON, so you're probably not checking your email. And I'm like, ooh, I like you because you did your research and you went and saw like, you kind of saw like the scope of it.
Yeah.
And also super random. He was, he's like in the Expanse, like sci-fi community. So he was actually at Dragon Con. So we got to meet up when we were there.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like, that was a good experience.
It's such a community, isn't it? So.
Yeah. But yes, I won't say I won't judge all media, but yeah.
Thank you.
That's why I said, like, when you and I talk back and forth, I felt I almost had to put like this skeptic wall when I start to just email people back and forth now, because a lot of the time they just like, they wanted my video. And I'm like,
sure.
All right, I'm just going to keep the content under me. That's not why I did it. I'm not making any money off of it.
But you should. You rightly should. I mean, go ahead and do that.
But the research you put into it and the questions you thought to ask me, those are all, I appreciate that. And I know that that's your time as well. Because I think if anything you can give someone is your time. So yeah,
Thanks,
appreciate that.
Amy, as kind of a final thought, in wrapping up our interview this week, you spoke about, I mean, with the Tesla hack, there was fear there. You were a little afraid to actually have this done, but you overcame that. And just using that as an analogy, not specifically that. We all face fear, and we all have a fear of failure. I think that as humans, we all just experience that, especially as we're just learning and growing up and figuring out where we want to be in life. So what would you say to a young person who is currently facing that fear?
Yeah, failure is a normal thing, but I think from failure comes iteration. And iteration is either what makes you say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do this, or holy crap, I learned something new. So from all of this, I designed some of my own RFID antennas. I did a lot of research on that. And the first of them didn't work. And when I ordered some test ones for my PCB boards from China, and I had to wait, and I got it, and I was so excited to open it, and it didn't work. That's a failure. But you got to look at all the other things that I got there for that research. I put myself on the pedestal thinking it's going to work right the first time. You know nothing of hardware then. But I also know I don't want to make those antennas full-time for the rest of my life, but that failure process is an iteration, right? And I also find that iterative process and stuff that you failed actually apply to other projects without even meaning to or knowing. And yeah, it's like it becomes this entire like CV of your life, the universe, and everything. And yeah, I don't know. It becomes you, right? So, and also like, I guess what you set your goals, like, what do you think like is going to failure? Like, I know one thing I suck at is time. So like, if my goal is to finish this in an hour, then I have failed. But yeah, you learn yourself when you set goals for yourself, and I wouldn't say set failures, but it's not even expectations, but like look at all this stuff that you've learned about yourself and then getting there. Yeah.
I like what Noman says
Yes.
in our chat, and you probably see it on your screen. Sasha, you can read that.
Fall down 6 times and get up 7.
Fall down 6 times, get up 7.
There you go.
Keep getting up.
99 bugs in the code. Match it around.
Syntax
108 bugs in
error.
the code.
Missing semicolon. What?
Yeah.
Well, Amie, it has been a pleasure having you here. Thank you for all that you do, and
Yes.
just be encouraged and know that there are those of us that really are watching with admiration and feeling inspired by some of the things that you've been able to achieve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
And thanks for being here with us this week. You can find out all about Amie DD's exploits and all the things that she's up to on her website, amiedd.com. And the links are below if you're watching this online. We've got to head over to the newsroom. Sasha, if you're ready for us.
I sure am. Here are the stories we're covering this week in the Category 5.tv newsroom. Chinese police have arrested a fugitive who'd been on the run for 17 years after they used drones to spot his cave hideout. The world's most freakishly advanced robot dog is now for sale. American entrepreneur Elon Musk has given an update on his Starship and Super Heavy rocket system, and an injured tortoise who lost its shell in a fire has become the world's first recipient of a 3D printed shell. These stories are coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. Chinese police have arrested a fugitive who had been on the run for 17 years after they used drones to spot his cave hideout. The 63-year-old had been jailed for human trafficking, but escaped from a prison camp in 2002. He had been living in a tiny cave cut off from human interaction for a number of years. Yongshan police received clues about the man's whereabouts in early September. Those clues led them to the mountains behind his hometown in Yunnan province in southwest China. After regular searches failed to find anything, authorities sent additional drones to help the officers. The drones eventually spotted a blue-colored steel tile on a steep cliff, as well as traces of household garbage nearby. Police then moved in on foot and found Song in a small cave where he'd been hiding. According to the police, the man had been living in seclusion for so long that it was difficult for him to communicate with the officers. State media said the man had used plastic bottles to get his drinking water from a river and branches of trees to make a fire. He has been sent back to jail.
It's unreal that he's disappeared for that long and then
17 years
found
of
by drones.
It's another use for drones. I was part of search and rescue efforts before with my drones for air support, and we had to look for cows. You know, cows got out of their fenced, and cows are expensive. You know, so they hired us, and we did find those cows.
Very cool.
But yeah, no, it's just another great use for this technology.
How long have drones been around for?
This is not something he would have planned for in 2002.
No, he'd be like, what?
What is this?
What are those?
Aliens.
Exactly. Oh, I say the poor guy, but I mean, he's an escaped convict.
Yeah.
Still, that must have been a world of confusion. Holy.
Would have been scary. Having a whole bunch of police drones
What's that noise?
coming in on you.
Yeah.
If you think about that, if you've never seen such a technology,
right.
I don't know. Maybe he had. Maybe he was like sneaking into town and keeping up on the news. I don't know.
I mean, and then when they say that they were problems communicating, I don't think his base communication skills would be a problem. But think about in 17 years how general language has changed.
Yeah.
Like, there is
slang and everything else, right?
It'd be very interesting to really get a lot more information about that interaction.
Interesting indeed.
The world's most freakishly advanced robot dog is now for sale. We've watched the Spot robot quadruped grow up and evolve from its earliest days as a larger, more cumbersome beast to a carefully refined machine capable of pulling trucks. Now maker Boston Dynamics is putting the robo dog on sale. The idea is not to provide a friendly pet that curls up in front of the fire each evening, though. Spot is designed for industrial use, whether that's carrying goods through a warehouse or inspecting a remote site that human operators would find difficult to get to. With that in mind, you can't just put down your cash and walk away with a Spot. Instead, Boston Dynamics will lease the Spot bot to companies with genuine uses for it. Prices vary and are on request, but think in the tens of thousands of US dollars. A nimble robot that climbs stairs and traverses rough terrain with unprecedented ease, yet is small enough to use indoors, is the description on the Boston Dynamics sales page. Quote, built to be a rugged and customizable platform, Spot autonomously accomplishes your industrial sensing and remote operation needs, end quote. For your money, you get a robot that can operate for 90 minutes between charges with a maximum speed of 1.6 meters per second, which is about 3.5 miles per hour. It can work in temperatures of between negative 20 degrees Celsius, which is negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and 45 degrees Celsius, which is 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and has a 360-degree camera vision that enables it to avoid obstacles. Spot can operate in the rain, too, and is able to carry payloads of up to 14 kilograms, which is nearly 31 pounds. Buyers can add bespoke sensors and hardware modules to Spot to adapt it for a variety of tasks.
That is so cool. It has been neat to see Spot's evolution as a technology.
Now, I just want to take it back also to the last story. Could you imagine if they also use Spot, drones and Spot to find
goodness,
the guy
the dog climbing up the side of the mountain.
From Black Mirror, like it's just like these little dogs coming at you.
What is this?
I know.
I know. Like even for like search and rescue though, like that's pretty cool. Eh?
Yeah.
Like, if you can go in like a disaster zone or if there's
That's
a
what I'm thinking.
hurricane.
Like a volatile area, you could send these in to find with 360-degree vision
Right.
to find like lost people or lost pets or whatever.
Or they can help with Uber Eats.
I
That
wonder.
would be
I
perfect.
want my Tim Hortons.
I want
delivered.
13.
So-
How many pounds is it? 30 pounds? You can hold 30 pounds of
31
KFC?
Yeah.
31 pounds
Oh
of
my
KFC.
goodness.
Perfect.
So because Boston Dynamics isn't selling them, they're leasing them, does that mean that they retain some of the rights to release the information of what they're used for? Because how fun would it be then to not, like, to see the adventures of Spot, right? Like maybe Boston Dynamics has you sign a waiver saying you must share pictures or you must give,
Hey,
you know.
there
His
you go.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Or her Instagram.
I'd really like to know what Spot ends up used for.
Yeah.
There's so much potential there.
Now we've got to take a quick break. The Crypto Report and more of this week's top tech news are coming up. Don't go anywhere. American entrepreneur Elon Musk has given an update on his Starship and Super Heavy rocket system. He plans to use the new vehicles to send people to the moon and Mars and also to move them swiftly around the Earth. The SpaceX CEO is in the process of building prototypes and plans to start flying them in the coming months. The Mk1 version of his Starship would begin high-altitude tests in the next 1 to 2 months, he said. The entrepreneur told an audience gathered at the company's Boca Chica, Texas facility where the prototype had been assembled, quote, "This is the most inspiring thing I've ever seen. This thing is going to take off, fly to 65,000 feet, about 20 kilometers, and come back and land. That is a giant thing. It's really going to be pretty epic to see that thing take off and come back," end quote. The 50-meter tall Starship will eventually fly atop its booster, the Super Heavy, and both parts of the new rocket system, which together will stand 118 meters tall on the launch pad, are being designed to be fully reusable, making propulsive landings at the end of their mission.
If we get to orbit in about 6 months, then and we have it's designed to be a reusable rocket, so a reusable booster, reusable ship, so we can do many flights to prove out the reliability very quickly. So whereas with an expendable vehicle, you have to build, if you want to do 10 flights, let's say, to prove out the viability of an expendable vehicle, you need to build and destroy 10 vehicles. Whereas we can do 10 flights, within basically 10 days. So when I say rapid reusability, I mean, you could fly it. You could fly the booster 20 times a day. You fly the ship 3 or 4 times a day. That's what I mean by reusability. And the only reason the ship it takes more time than that, more time than the booster, is that you need a couple of you need 3 or 4 orbits to synchronize for the ship so that it is over, like, I don't want to get into those complicated thing of orbital dynamics and the rotation of the Earth relative to satellite. But as anyone who's knows space, the track of a satellite, unless it's an equatorial satellite, is a sinusoidal track on the Earth. Unless it's equatorial or sun synchronous. So. Launching sort of due east, you have to kind of wait for the orbits to the ground path to sync up with the launch site, and that's the only reason it really takes maybe 6 hours or something like that to sync up and land back at Boca or the Cape. One of the really interesting things to contemplate is the total mass to orbit capability of a large reusable system where you have a significant fleet in operation. If you've got something like Starship where you've got maybe 150 tons capable to orbit, and the ship can fly, is capable of, say, theoretically flying 4 times a day, but they call it like 75% uptime, so theoretical 3 times a day, 365 days a year. So that's like about 1,000 flights a year for the ship. The booster can do a lot more than that. This is obviously max theoretical. And you've got 150 tons. That's 150,000 tons to orbit per year per ship. And if you've got, say, 10 ships, you would have 1.5 million tons to orbit per year. 20 ships, you've got 3 million tons orbit a year. I think the total rest of world capacity, if you take all rockets on Earth, including Falcon, the total capacity to orbit, I think, is around 200 to 300 tons currently. Total Earth capacity to orbit is about 200 to 300 tons if all rockets launched at max rate. So we're talking about something that is, with a fleet of Starships, 1,000 times more than all Earth capacity combined. All other rockets combined would be 0.1%, including ours. But you kind of need that if you're going to build a city on Mars. So it's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Mr. Musk, who is well known for his aggressive scheduling, said, quote, "This is going to sound totally nuts, but I think we want to try to reach orbit in less than 6 months. Provided the rate of design and improvement and manufacturing improvement continues to be exponential, I think that's accurate within a few months," end quote. While the scheduling often slips, eventually he does tend to deliver.
Wow. This is happening.
It's happening.
It's really happening.
It's probably not happening in 6 months, but it's happening.
Could be a year to a year and a half.
Right. Within a few months of 6 months.
Yeah.
Which could
That's
be
his cushion.
18 months of 6 months.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the fact that it's reusable, the fact,
I love that.
That speaks to me. I don't even like using reusable water bottles. Like, I don't want a spaceship
The
to go.
disposable ones.
Yeah, or that's what I mean, the disposable one. So I like that it'll be able to safely, I assume, land in a controlled manner and be reused.
Well, that's it. And when you think about what's going to be necessary in order to, this is sci-fi. Like, we're talking about this in reality. I'm thinking, in order to place people on Mars.
Yeah.
Or to colonate the moon.
It seems so far
this
away.
Is reality now. Yeah.
Now, there's one question, though. Will there be a frequent flyer program that you can get miles? But no, it's really exciting.
I'm actually really more excited, mainly because I love Earth, but I'm more excited for the fact that travel around Earth, like
Sure, yeah.
that would be so fast.
I'd love to visit Australia in about a half hour.
Exactly.
You know.
Be back for lunch, you know,
Yeah,
and go to
yeah.
Britain for dinner.
Well, you're a pilot, so you kind of have that sense because
I'm just watching for that little NOTAM. So like when the airspace is closed for this, I'm gonna be like, yeah, there goes Elon again. He's at it again.
But I see your flight plans though, and I think, man, that would have taken me 6 hours, and you just fly somewhere, have lunch, and fly back.
I know. Now it's just like, yeah, we're going to Mars.
And that's how, like, it's just going to be reality
It's
at one
amazing.
point. I mean, it's not going to be in 6 hours, but
Or 6 months.
yeah, but that's
Come on
actually
now,
going to
Elon.
Go to
happen.
Japan in like a few hours. Don't mind. Or an hour.
Wow.
An injured tortoise who lost its shell in a fire became the world's first recipient of a 3D printed shell. When it comes to animals who are vulnerable in a forest fire, tortoises probably aren't the first to come to mind. However, they've been among the many victims of a fire in Brazil. One of the turtles who was injured in the brush fires was in desperate need of medical attention. They call him Freddy. He was badly burned, and his shell was actually destroyed from the fire. Turtles depend on their shells, so Freddy not having his was a big problem. A group of veterinarians, a dental surgeon, and a designer had only recently formed a group called the Animal Avengers that help animals who have been struck by tragedy. Freddy was their first patient and has been saved through the innovative use of technology. Freddy now lives at the home of one of the veterinarians who helped with the prosthetic.
It's so neat.
I actually really picture that as they save more and more animals, they're just going to adopt them as they save them. So, really, this veterinarian and the dental surgeon and everybody, they're just all going to have this random, like, group
They're
of
going to open
animals.
a zoo of 3D printed animals.
So cool.
I love it. When
Oh.
tech comes into play to, like, save animals and the
Absolutely.
earth.
Anytime, like, I love tech stories where, like, our human life is helped or
Yes.
improved, and to think that they're doing things for animals as well. I think that's
Yeah.
so super cool. We've got to take a real quick look at the crypto report, if we may, just to
Okay.
get a look at where things stand on the cryptocurrency market as of 1800 hours Eastern Time on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. Bitcoin dropped about $362 US over the past week.
Wow.
Very volatile, and we're not really sure where it's going. It's down at $8,261.54 US this week. Facebook Libra still not trading.
Super steady.
Yep, at zero. Litecoin is holding fairly steady. It's down a little bit at $55.68 US. Ethereum is at $177.53 US. Monero is losing a little bit at $55.82. And the two that are holding real steady are the ones that are. It looks like the microcoin market is just holding where it is.
Yeah.
It's not really fluctuating at the Satoshi level at all. We're looking at Scala this week again at 0.33 10,000ths of a cent, and Turtlecoin at 0.24. Remember, if you're going to invest or have any involvement in the cryptocurrency market, it's always open and it's always volatile. It's 24/7, so things could flip on their heads overnight and through the night. So when you invest, make sure that you invest only what you can afford to lose.
Big thanks to Rory W. Nash and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category 5.tv newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And for more free content, be sure to check out our website. From the Category 5.tv newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Robbie Ferguson.
And I'm Henry Bailey-Brown.
We've got to take a really quick break. Stick around. Well, thanks for joining us this week. I hope you've enjoyed the show. That's all the time that we have now. Next week, it's all about the Orville. But this time around, I don't want you to get secondhand information. So the Orville editor and associate producer Tom Costatino is going to be here. Also, along with visual effects producer Brooke Noska and senior concept designer Lex Kassar. They're all going to be here. Join us for an exclusive glimpse behind the scenes of what's going on at the Orville as the cast and crew are preparing to begin shooting season 3 in just 2 weeks' time. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.